Star Wars is one of the highest grossing film franchises of all time. But how much weird do we really know about it? So I did a little digging, a lot of internet searching, and I came up with some little known and pretty fascinating weird about Star Wars on today's episode of 5 Weird Things. Welcome to the channel. Now, I was in line and saw Star Wars on the day it came out. I love sci-fi, and Star Wars was several steps above the special effects of any of the movies of the day. If nothing else, George Lucas changed the game for future special effects movies. Star Wars: A New Hope is one of my favorite all-time films. Now, what's your favorite Star Wars movie? Let me know in the comments. All right, let's get into it. First, the things we all need to know. Star Wars is a sci-fi saga created by George Lucas, beginning with A New Hope in 1977. Set in a distant galaxy, it tells the story of the struggle between the Jedi and the Sith, focusing on characters like Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Princess Leia, and Han Solo. Known for its use of the Force, lightsabers, space battles, the series redefined special effects and storytelling in cinema. Over the years, Star Wars has expanded into sequels, prequels, and TV series like The Mandalorian, books, comics, and games. Its themes of heroism, redemption, and the battle between good and evil have made it one of the most influential and enduring franchises in film history. Everybody got that? Good. Weird thing number 5. It almost didn't get made. Now, before Star Wars found a home at 20th Century Fox, George Lucas pitched it to multiple studios, including Universal Pictures and United Artists, both of whom declined. Many executives did not understand the concept, thinking it was too risky or too strange to succeed. Science fiction was not a major box office draw at the time, making it even harder for Lucas to gain support. 20th Century Fox took a chance on George Lucas. Alan Ladd Jr., an executive at 20th Century Fox, decided to approve Star Wars, not because he fully understood the story, but because he believed in George Lucas as a filmmaker. He was impressed by George Lucas' his previous film, American Graffiti, and that was big money. And he wanted to work with him on future projects, so this faith in the director played a key role in the film being greenlit. Now, the film had a modest budget. Despite being an ambitious sci-fi epic, Star Wars was given a relatively low budget of $8 million, later increased to $11 million. Now, the limited funds led to creative solutions, such as using practical effects, repurposing everyday objects as props, and filming in real-world locations like Tunisia for Tatooine. Lucas negotiated to keep the merchandising rights. One of the most significant decisions was George Lucas's negotiation to retain the merchandising and sequel rights in exchange for a lower director's fee. And at the time, Fox saw little value in merchandising, but after Star Wars became a global hit, the toys and collectibles turned into a billion-dollar industry. Now, production difficulties almost led to the cancellation of the whole thing. The production of Star Wars faced significant challenges, including weather issues, technical malfunctions, and delays. At one point, Fox executives considered shutting it down, but Lucas managed to keep the project going. Ultimately, the gamble paid off and Star Wars became one of the most successful films in history. Weird thing number 4. It was expected to be just a little film, not a big deal. George Lucas even skipped the premiere. Despite spending years developing Star Wars, George Lucas was uncertain about its success, so instead of attending the premiere, he went on vacation to Hawaii with a friend, Steven Spielberg. Now, while they were there, the two discussed future projects, which led to the creation of Indiana Jones. Meanwhile, Star Wars became a massive hit, proving Lucas's doubts completely unnecessary. Theaters were actually hesitant to show the movie. Many theaters were reluctant to screen Star Wars because science fiction films had a really poor track record at the box office. To encourage screenings, 20th Century Fox required theaters to show Star Wars if they wanted to screen the highly anticipated film The Other Side of Midnight. This decision helped get the film into more theaters, where it quickly gained momentum. Now, the crowds were unexpectedly large. The film opened up in just 32 theaters, but word spread rapidly. Lines wrapped around buildings and around blocks. Theaters had to schedule additional screenings to meet demand. Some locations ran the film continuously for over a year, as it just remained incredibly popular with audiences. The attendance wasn't dropping off. Now, Mark Hamill almost missed the event. A few months before the premiere, Mark Hamill was in a serious car accident requiring facial surgery. While he did recover in time for the premiere, his injuries were noticeable. The incident led to the inclusion of Luke Skywalker's Wampa attack in The Empire Strikes Back to explain his slightly altered appearance. Alec Guinness, who played Obi-Wan Kenobi, was not particularly fond of Star Wars. They talked him into it. He reportedly found the dialogue difficult and dismissed the film as a simple children's story. Despite this, his performance became legendary, and his character remains one of the most beloved in the entire franchise history. Weird thing number 3. The original script was really different from what you saw on the screen. Now, Luke Skywalker was originally an older character. In the early drafts, Luke Skywalker was written as a grizzled old general named Luke Starkiller. He was a more battle-hardened figure, much different from the youthful and idealistic character we now associate with the role. Eventually, Lucas decided to make Luke younger, a farm boy with untapped potential, and the name was changed to Skywalker to reflect a more heroic lineage. Han Solo was originally thought of as an alien. He wasn't the charming smuggler human that we know, but a large green-skinned alien with gills and a more intimidating appearance. Han's transformation into a human character happened later, partly to simplify the design and make the character more relatable. This also allowed for a better dynamic between Han and Chewbacca. Now, Darth Vader and Anakin Skywalker were actually two separate characters. In the early versions of the script, Darth Vader and Anakin Skywalker were completely different characters, and Anakin was a heroic figure who eventually passed the torch to Luke, while Vader was a completely separate villain. The connection between the two wasn't established until The Empire Strikes Back, when the iconic reveal was added to further deepen the storyline. Now, the destruction of the Death Star was initially more complicated in the early drafts because there were 2 Death Stars instead of 1. And the destruction occurred over a different planet. The final version streamlined this plot, setting the Death Star 1 over Yavin 4, simplifying the battle sequence to increase its emotional impact. Now, in the original script, lightsabers were not exclusive to the Jedi and Sith. Han Solo and other non-Force users were supposed to be wielding them, which would have made them less mystical and more common throughout the galaxy. Ultimately, lightsabers were designated as a symbol of the Jedi and Sith power, making them more special and central to the story. Weird thing number 2. The whole cast was not the first choice. Now, the legendary Al Pacino was initially considered for the role of Han Solo. However, Pacino turned it down, reportedly because he didn't understand the script. He later admitted that the idea of a space adventure wasn't appealing to him at the time. The role eventually went to Harrison Ford, who brought the perfect mix of charm and scruffiness to the character. Now, Kurt Russell also auditioned for both Han Solo and Luke Skywalker, but was ultimately rejected for both roles. Despite this, Russell's audition helped him land many other memorable roles, like Snake Plissken in Escape from New York and the action-packed hit The Thing. Though he didn't join the Star Wars universe, he became a Hollywood icon in his own right. Now, Sylvester Stallone also auditioned for the role of Han Solo. Stallone later commented that his audition was not successful because he couldn't see himself playing such a space cowboy. Had he been cast, it would have made for a very different Han Solo, with Stallone's tough, Rocky-like persona clashing with the character's more sarcastic, roguish charm. An actress, Jodie Foster, was considered for the role of Princess Leia, but she was under contract with Disney at the time, so she could not take the part. The role eventually went to Carrie Fisher, who became an iconic figure in the film history. Foster would later reflect on how different her career path would have been if she had taken the role. Toshiro Mifune as Obi-Wan Kenobi, or Darth Vader even. Now, he was a famous Japanese actor known for his samurai roles, and he was initially offered the role of Obi-Wan Kenobi or Darth Vader. It was a stretch. However, Mifune turned down the offer, fearing that Star Wars would tarnish his reputation as a serious actor. Ironically, Star Wars was heavily influenced by samurai films, and his involvement would have been a fitting tribute to his legacy. And finally, weird thing number 1. They reused a lot of props due to their tiny budget. Now, the Hero Blaster is an iconic gun Han Solo uses throughout his original trilogy. It was originally a modified Mauser C96 pistol, which was fitted with sci-fi elements to give it a more futuristic look. The prop was created by combining real-world items and repurposed existing materials, making it an example of creative ingenuity used on the set. Now, R2-D2's design is one of the most recognizable in the film, but few know that part of its inspiration came from a simple milk carton. The droid's cylindrical shape was initially based on an ordinary milk carton before it evolved into the more shaped, iconic robot. It's a reminder of how humble objects often inspire the most memorable cinematic creations. The lightsaber that Luke Skywalker uses in A New Hope is a prop that is now legendary, but its creation was based on a 1950s-era camera flash. The camera flash's cylindrical body was combined with other parts to create the handle, while the glowing blade was achieved with a simple light. The iconic look of the weapon was a result of both innovation and budget limitations. Now, the key to the Death Star, seen in A New Hope, is actually a small prop with a fascinating backstory. It was made using a simple metal key and repurposed bits of model kit parts. This small but important object was used to symbolize the plans that led to the destruction of the Death Star. Chewbacca's iconic bandolier, worn across his chest, was a key part of his whole look. However, the bandolier itself was made from an old military ammunition belt, and it was just repurposed. The small pouches that lined the belt were simply added as extra details, adding to the authentic look of Chewie's attire. These props show how creativity and resourcefulness on the set helped create the unforgettable world of Star Wars, even if the objects themselves started out as ridiculously ordinary items. Well, that's it for today's episode. I hope you liked it. Do me a favor, watch more of my videos. Take care, and may the Force be with you, always.